Hey everyone. All right, this is our first lesson. You're going to use this video and the PowerPoint that is attached to help you fill out the notes that you have to submit to me for your first assignment. So obviously this is American History 1. My job is to take you from kind of the start, the formation of what will become the United States up until the Civil War. Okay, so let's kick off and get started. Hopefully you are familiar. World history was supposed to cover these concepts, so I'm going to give you just a brief reminder of a few things. Humans migrated to North and South America roughly, we believe, 40,000 years ago. Hopefully you remember the concept of the out of Africa theory, that all life began on the continent of Africa, and then humans spread out across the globe as they moved and migrated. We believe that people wound up on this continent thanks to a land bridge that was exposed during an ice age that would have connected modern day Russia to modern day Alaska. And the people that migrated over would become Native Americans, who divided into hundreds of tribes, spoke different languages, and had a lot of different complex, wonderful cultures, really being civilizations. Maybe you remember talking about the big empires, the Maya and the Inca and the Aztec, and you're probably familiar with things like the Catawba and the Cherokee, who were tribes in the area where we live around here. So that's how people wound up on this continent in the first place, are Native Americans, our original American people. European exploration is obviously what changed what was happening in North and South America. I'm not going to say necessarily changed for the better, but is what changed. That is a huge topic of debate today. So the continent of Europe, as you see over here, which has countries like England, France, Spain, I didn't mean to circle that part of Africa, right here. These countries started exploring for monetary gain. They wanted to take to the ocean by boat to explore, not necessarily to find things that have not been found before, but to find trade routes to Southeast Asia, which had a very, very lucrative spice trade. The Dutch also wanted to come down and take advantage of African trade as well. So all of these people get on boats, they start crossing the Atlantic Ocean, and thus you have interaction between the Western Hemisphere and the Eastern Hemisphere. Probably the person you are very familiar with because you learned that rhyme in elementary school, 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. He was one of the first, not the first, but he was one of the first Europeans to cross the Atlantic Ocean and land over in the Western Hemisphere, which will become the Americas. He believed he landed in India, which is why he named the people that he found Indians, which is confusing to me why we still use that term when we know that it was wrong. He wasn't in India. He found people that were Native Americans. And he died believing that he did find a westward passage to India. He had no clue that he had landed in quote unquote new territory for Europeans. So after his death, people realized, hey, he wasn't in Southeast Asia. He was somewhere else. They start flocking and flocking and flocking across the Atlantic Ocean to try to find what Columbus didn't, which is some kind of wealth or riches. Okay. I do want you to take away from this that, you're taught a lot of interesting things about Columbus in elementary school, but please know, not really a great guy. He enslaved many of the natives that he found rather than befriending them. He never thought he discovered anything new because, people were there when he landed, so he didn't think this was something new. And his crew spread smallpox, measles, and the flu to the native population, killing a lot of them. And every European that comes after him will also demolish the population with disease. Okay, so this is the last slide, the last part that we really want to focus on. So same thing. Once Columbus has established a route of how to get from Europe to the quote unquote, what will become the Americas, multiple people are going to be making this trip. And we're going to establish not necessarily like a trade route, but what's going to be called the Columbian Exchange, where obviously if you have two groups of people interacting with each other who did not normally interact with each other, they're going to be swapping things back and forth, like plants and animals. And you can read all of those different ones that are on here. But I want you to know the big thing that was swapped accidentally, which you're very familiar with now when people interact with each other, is disease. And that was the downside to the Columbian Exchange, was so many natives died because they were getting diseases that they were not immune to. All right, hope you guys do great in filling out your notes.